I sat in the attorney's office staring at the old document, reading the same line over and over. My grandfather had left me a tractor, not land, not money, not the farmhouse my brother Marcus had been eyeing for years. A 1952 John Deere Model R tractor that had been sitting in Grandpa's barn since before I was born. Marcus couldn't contain himself. He actually laughed out loud in the attorney's office, breaking the somber atmosphere. A rusted tractor? That's what you get for being the favorite grandson. He leaned back in his chair with that smirk I'd hated since childhood. I got the 100 acres of prime farmland and the equipment barn. You got scrap metal. The attorney, Mr. Patterson, cleared his throat uncomfortably. There's a note attached to this bequest. Your grandfather specifically wrote, "To my grandson Daniel, I leave the 1952 John Deere. Look beneath the hood, boy. Some things are worth more than they appear." Marcus snorted. Cryptic old man nonsense. Probably dementia talking. I felt anger flash through me, but I kept my mouth shut. Grandpa had been sharp as a tack until the day he died at 93. If he left me that tractor specifically, there was a reason. After the meeting, Marcus couldn't resist one more jab. "Hey, Danny, need help hauling your inheritance to the scrapyard? I'll give you $50 for the metal." I just walked away. Let him have his moment of superiority. That evening, I drove out to Grandpa's property. The old farmhouse sat empty now, windows dark. The barn loomed in the twilight, its red paint faded but structure still solid. I had a key. Grandpa had given it to me years ago, long before he got sick. Inside, covered in dust and shadows, sat the John Deere. Even in the dim light I could see it was rough. The green paint was faded and chipped, one tire was flat, and years of barn grime covered every surface. But Grandpa's words echoed in my mind. Look beneath the hood. I returned the next morning with my son Jake, who was 16 and always eager to work on mechanical projects with me. The barn looked different in daylight, still old and weathered, but honest somehow. Grandpa had built it himself in 1948, before he bought the John Deere. "This is what great-grandpa left you?" Jake asked, walking around the tractor. "Uncle Marcus was right. It looks pretty rough." I shot him a look. "Your great-grandfather wasn't a fool. He said to look under the hood for a reason." The hood was actually the engine cover on this model, and it was stuck tight. Decades of rust and settling had sealed it shut. We spent an hour working, penetrating oil into the seams, tapping gently with rubber mallets and carefully prying. Finally, with a groan of protesting metal, it lifted. What we saw underneath made us both stop cold. The engine was immaculate, not just clean, but showroom perfect. Every component gleamed. The pistons, valves and cylinders looked like they'd been machined yesterday. Chrome sparkled. Brass fittings shined like gold. "Dad," Jake whispered, "this engine is beautiful. How is this possible?" I was wondering the same thing. This tractor had supposedly sat here for 40 years. The outside was corroded and neglected, but the engine looked brand new. Then I noticed something else. Bolted to the engine block was a small metal box I didn't recognize, definitely not original equipment. It had a combination lock on it. Next to the lock, someone had scratched into the metal, "Your birthday backwards." My birthday backwards. That would be 7241 instead of 1427. With trembling fingers, I spun the combination. The lock clicked open. Inside the box was a folded letter in Grandpa's distinctive handwriting, and beneath it, something wrapped in oiled cloth. I pulled out the letter first. "Dear Danny," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone." Good. I was getting tired anyway. Even in death, Grandpa's humor came through. I sat on an old workbench and read, while Jake examined the mysterious wrapped package. Grandpa's handwriting was shaky but legible, probably written in his final months. "I know Marcus got the land. That's what he wanted, what he always wanted. But you, Danny, you're like me. You see value in things others overlook. You understand that worth isn't always measured in acres or dollars. The letter continued. This tractor isn't what it seems. Yes, I let the outside deteriorate on purpose, but underneath I've maintained her perfectly for 40 years. Every 6 months I'd come out here, run the engine, check every system, keep her ready. Why? Because this old girl is special. My hands were shaking as I continued reading. In 1952, this was one of the first diesel tractors John Deere made, revolutionary for its time, but this particular one is even more special. It's a prototype, one of only 3 made before full production. The other 2 are in museums. This one, it's got modifications the production models never got. Experimental fuel injection, custom transmission, engine tweaks that made it twice as powerful as the standard model. I looked at Jake, who had stopped unwrapping the package to listen. Your great-grandfather owned a prototype? Grandpa's letter wasn't finished. But here's the real treasure, son. Under that oiled cloth, you'll find documentation, original purchase receipt, John Deere engineer's notes, photos of the prototype testing, and most importantly, letters from John Deere historians who've been trying to buy this tractor from me for 30 years. Jake had the cloth fully unwrapped now. Inside was a thick folder of documents, all preserved in plastic sleeves. We spread them on the workbench. There were black and white photos from 1952 showing this exact tractor at a John Deere testing facility, engineering blueprints, and letters, dozens of letters, offering anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 for the tractor, $200,000 for what Marcus had called scrap metal. There's more, I continued reading Grandpa's letter. The engine is worth restoring properly, but the real value, tell Marcus to read the property deed carefully. That evening, I pulled out the property deed Marcus had received. I'd gotten a copy from the attorney, standard procedure for estate settlements. I'd glanced at it before, but hadn't studied it carefully. Why would I? The land was Marcus's, but now I read every word. Standard legal language filled most of the document: property boundaries, mineral rights, water rights. Then on page 4, I found it, a clause I'd completely missed before. The heir receiving the northern 100 acres agrees to grant perpetual right-of-way and equipment access to the heir receiving the 1952 John Deere, should said heir choose to farm or develop any portion of the property. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood. Then I called my lawyer even though it was 8 p.m. Jim, I need you to interpret something. I read him the clause. He was quiet for a moment. Daniel, this is actually quite significant. What this means is that you have legal right to access and use that land essentially whenever you want for farming purposes. Your brother owns it, but he can't exclude you from it. And equipment access is broad language. You could potentially run a farming operation on his land. But I don't have farming equipment, I said. Then it hit me. Wait, except I do have a tractor. A very valuable, very functional tractor. Exactly, Jim said. Your grandfather was clever. He gave your brother the land, but he gave you the means to use it and profit from it. It's brilliant, actually. Your brother can't farm it himself without equipment, and he can't stop you from farming it with yours. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen just thinking. Grandpa had played this perfectly. Marcus got what he wanted, the satisfaction of inheriting the valuable land. But Grandpa had ensured I got something far more valuable, the means to actually profit from it, plus a tractor worth a fortune, plus the legal right to use Marcus's land. My brother had mocked me for getting scrap metal. He had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I called a John Deere restoration specialist whose name was in Grandpa's folder of documents. Thomas Crawford was a legend in vintage John Deere circles. He'd restored tractors for museums, private collectors, and had even consulted on agricultural history documentaries. When I told him what I had, there was a long silence on the phone. You have the R prototype? Old Joe's tractor? His voice was almost reverent. "I've been trying to convince your grandfather to let me restore that machine for 15 years. He always said he was saving it for someone special." Thomas drove up from Kentucky 2 days later. When he saw the tractor, he actually got emotional. This is history, living, breathing history. He walked around it slowly, taking photos, making notes. The outside needs work, but it's all cosmetic. The important stuff, the engine, transmission, the custom modifications, it's all here and it's all perfect. Your grandfather maintained this better than some people maintain their cars. The restoration estimate was shocking. $35,000 for a complete museum-quality restoration. But Thomas looked me in the eye and said, "When this is done, you'll have a tractor worth $250,000, maybe more. There are collectors who would pay that in cash today, unrestored. Properly restored, sky's the limit." I authorized the work. Thomas would take it to his shop, do everything right. Period-correct paint, chrome, decals, while preserving all the original prototype modifications. 6 months, he estimated. Meanwhile, I hadn't told Marcus anything. He assumed I was dealing with getting the old tractor hauled away. He was busy having surveys done on his inherited land, talking to developers, planning his future as a wealthy landowner. I spent that time researching, learning about farming, equipment, crops, talking to neighboring farmers about leasing arrangements and profit sharing, reading that property deed clause over and over, understanding exactly what rights I had. Jake helped me plan. "Dad, we could actually do this. Farm Uncle Marcus's land, make real money, and there's nothing he can do about it." My son had inherited Grandpa's strategic mind. 3 months into the restoration, Marcus called me. "Hey, I've got a developer interested in the property, wants to build a subdivision. I'm going to make a fortune." "That's great," I said neutrally. "Yeah, anyway, I was thinking, you want to buy that old tractor from you, give you $500 for your trouble?" I almost laughed. "No thanks, Marcus, I'm keeping it. Suit yourself, your loss." If he only knew. Marcus's developer deal fell apart in month 4. Apparently the perpetual easement clause in his deed was a problem. The developer's attorney had actually read it carefully, unlike Marcus, and realized that having someone else with legal access to the property at any time made development complicated. "They're worried about liability," Marcus complained when he called me. "Something about you having access rights. I told them you'd never actually use it, but they want it removed from the deed." "Can't remove it," I told him honestly. "It was Grandpa's condition. Probably can't be modified without my consent." "So consent?" Marcus was getting agitated. "You're not going to farm it anyway. You don't even have equipment." "Actually, I do have a tractor." I let that hang in the air. There was silence. Then, "That piece of junk? You're kidding." I could hear the disbelief in his voice. "Danny, be serious. Sign a waiver. I'll give you 10 grand. We both walk away happy." "No thanks. 20 grand. Final offer." "Not interested, Marcus." He hung up on me. I smiled. The restoration was nearly complete, and I'd already lined up 3 farmers interested in a partnership to work the land. The math was solid. We could grow soybeans and corn, split profits, and everyone would make money. Except Marcus, who'd get nothing while watching us profit from land he technically owned. Thomas called 2 weeks later. "She's ready. Come see your tractor." The drive to Kentucky took 6 hours. Jake came with me, taking off school for what I called an education in family history. Thomas's shop was immaculate, and there, in the center bay, under perfect lighting, sat the John Deere. I didn't recognize it. The faded green had been restored to a brilliant deep emerald. Chrome gleamed. Yellow wheels looked like they'd just left the factory. Every decal was perfect, every line sharp. It looked better than new. It looked like a jewel. All original specifications. Thomas walked me around it, but I documented everything, took photos of every modification, catalogued every custom part. I've prepared a complete historical portfolio. This tractor could be in the Smithsonian. How much is it worth now? Jake asked. Thomas considered. At auction, conservative estimate, 300,000. To the right private collector who understands what this is, $500,000, maybe more. $500,000. I had the tractor transported home on a custom trailer covered with a tarp. I scheduled a family gathering at Grandpa's old property, inviting Marcus and a few cousins. Going through some of Grandpa's old tools, I told them. Thought we should all get a chance to take what we want. Marcus showed up in his new truck, paid for by taking a loan against the land he'd inherited. He was in a good mood, having found another potential developer willing to work around the easement if I'd agree to limit my access rights. So, about signing that waiver, he started. I've got a lawyer who says we can modify the terms so you still have access but only during certain hours with advance notice. The developer is okay with that. Let me show you something first, I said, leading him toward the barn. Jake had set up good lighting inside. The tractor sat there under the tarp, hidden. Our cousins gathered around, curious. You all know Grandpa left me his old tractor, I said. Marcus here thought it was junk, offered me $50 for scrap. A few people chuckled. Marcus looked uncomfortable. So I want to show you all what Grandpa actually left me. I pulled the tarp off. There were actual gasps. The tractor gleamed like a museum piece, which technically it was. The green paint seemed to glow. Chrome caught the light and threw it back in brilliant reflections. It was stunning. This, I said, is a 1952 John Deere Model R prototype, one of 3 ever made. The other 2 are in museums. This one was personally maintained by Grandpa for 40 years. It's been professionally restored to museum quality. Marcus was staring, mouth open. That's the same tractor? Custom engine modifications, experimental transmission, historical documentation. I held up Thomas's portfolio. Authenticated, appraised, and valued at somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000. The silence was absolute. Marcus looked like I'd punched him in the stomach. $500,000? His voice cracked. For a tractor? For a piece of agricultural history, I corrected. But I'm not selling it, I'm using it. Using it? For what? To farm your land, brother. Remember that easement clause you didn't read carefully. I have perpetual rights to farm the property you inherited, and now I have the equipment to do it. Marcus tried everything over the next 2 weeks. He threatened legal action until his lawyer read the deed and told him he had no case. He tried to guilt me, reminding me we were family. He even tried apologizing for mocking me at the will reading, though we both knew it was insincere. Finally, he came to my house looking defeated. What do you want, Danny? I'd been expecting this. I want what Grandpa wanted. He didn't leave you that land to develop it. He left it to be farmed, and he gave me the means to farm it. So you're just going to farm my land and keep all the profit? Marcus looked bitter. Actually, no. I'm proposing a partnership. You own the land, I provide equipment and labor. We split profits 60-40. 60-40? Why do I only get 40? Because you're literally doing nothing except owning land you inherited. I'm doing all the work, but 40% of something is better than 100% of nothing, which is what you have now. Marcus thought about it. I could see him calculating. His developer deals had fallen through. The land was just sitting there, costing him property taxes. What about the tractor? That's worth a fortune. You could sell it, split it with me. I shook my head. Not happening. That tractor was Grandpa's gift to me specifically, but I'll use it to make us both money. I've already lined up 3 neighboring farmers interested in a co-op arrangement. We pool resources, work multiple properties, split costs and profits. Your land would be part of it. Over the next week, Marcus reluctantly agreed. We drew up a partnership agreement, had lawyers review it, made it official. I'd farm the land using the John Deere as my flagship piece of equipment, along with other necessary machinery I'd lease. We'd grow soybeans and corn, rotating crops, following sustainable practices Grandpa would have approved of. Jake was learning agricultural science in school and would help during summers and weekends. It was perfect, a family operation spanning 3 generations, even though Grandpa was gone. The first time I drove that restored John Deere onto Marcus's land, my brother stood watching. I'd invited him specifically, wanting him to see. Spring planting that first year was something special. The John Deere ran like a dream, smooth, powerful, reliable. Thomas had been right about the prototype modifications. This tractor had capabilities that standard 1952 models couldn't match. It pulled equipment effortlessly, handled heavy loads, and never complained. But I was careful with it. This wasn't just farm equipment anymore. It was a $250,000 piece of history. I used it for lighter work, ceremonies, showing neighboring farmers what sustainable agriculture looked like. For the heavy daily grinding, I leased modern equipment. The co-op arrangement worked better than expected. 4 families, including mine, pooled resources. We helped each other during planting and harvest, shared equipment costs, and marketed crops together for better prices. Marcus's 100 acres were productive and well-positioned. By midsummer, we could see the profit potential. Marcus started coming around more often, actually interested now. He'd never farmed a day in his life, but he started asking questions, learning. One evening, working on irrigation planning, he said something that surprised me. "Grandpa knew what he was doing, didn't he? Giving you the tractor, giving me the land. He knew we'd have to work together." I nodded. He was smarter than both of us gave him credit for. "I was a jerk at the will reading," Marcus said quietly. "I'm sorry. I thought I'd won, getting the land. I thought you got screwed. And now? Now I realize Grandpa gave us both exactly what we needed. I needed humility. You needed validation. It wasn't a full reconciliation. We'd never be best friends, but it was something. A working relationship based on mutual benefit and grudging respect. Grandpa would have approved." Harvest that fall exceeded projections. The land was fertile, weather had been good, and our co-op's efficiency meant lower costs. When we calculated final numbers, Marcus's 40% share came to nearly $80,000. Not bad for doing nothing but owning land. My 60% after costs was about $120,000. Combined with my regular job as a civil engineer, it was a good year. But more importantly, we'd honored Grandpa's vision. The land was being farmed properly, sustainably, the way he'd always done it. The John Deere sat in my barn now, in a climate-controlled space I'd built specifically for it. But twice a month, I'd start it up and drive it around the property, keeping everything fresh and ready. Just like Grandpa had done for 40 years, word spread about the tractor. Agricultural historians, John Deere executives, museum curators, they all came calling. The offers escalated. $350,000. $400,000. A museum in Iowa offered $450,000 plus a permanent display with Grandpa's name on it. The most interesting offer came from John Deere Corporate. They wanted to feature the tractor in their heritage advertising campaign. Not buy it, just use its image and story. They'd pay $50,000 for 1 year of marketing rights and provide full insurance coverage if I'd let them display it at major farm shows. I talked it over with Jake, with Sarah, my wife, even with Marcus, since our partnership now. "Take the deal," Marcus advised. $50,000 for letting them take pictures? That's free money. But Sarah understood my hesitation. It's not about the money. It's about what Grandpa wanted. He kept it hidden for 40 years. Maybe there's a reason. I reread Grandpa's letter for the 100th time. There was a line I'd glossed over before. "This tractor isn't meant to sit in a museum, son. It's meant to remind you that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes the things that look worthless are the most precious. Sometimes the brother who seems successful is actually lost. Sometimes the grandson who gets nothing gets everything." I turned down all the offers. The John Deere stayed with me, used occasionally on the farm, maintained perfectly, but primarily serving as a reminder. A reminder that Grandpa had seen something in me worth investing in. A reminder that patience and wisdom trump flash and greed. Besides, the tractor's value kept increasing. Every year it aged, it became rarer, more historical, more valuable. Thomas said that in 20 years it could be worth $1 million, maybe more. But I'd made a decision. In my own will, I was leaving the John Deere to Jake, with the same note Grandpa had left me: "Look beneath the hood. Some things are worth more than they appear." Because Jake would understand. He'd seen the whole journey, from Marcus's mockery to the revelation to the partnership. He'd learned the same lesson I had, that the greatest inheritances aren't always measured in dollars or acres, but in wisdom, values, and the character of the person who left them to you. Something shifted in Marcus over that first year. The man who'd mocked me at the will reading was gradually being replaced by someone different, someone humbler. He'd started attending local agricultural meetings, learning about sustainable farming, asking questions instead of assuming he knew everything. One Saturday, he showed up at my house with old photo albums. "Found these in Grandpa's attic. Thought you might want to see them." We spent the afternoon going through pictures of Grandpa farming that same land back in the 50s and 60s. There was even a photo of him standing next to the John Deere when it was brand new, grinning with pride. "He loved that machine," Marcus said quietly, "and he knew exactly what he was doing, leaving it to you. You're like him. You see the real value in things. I was always just looking at the price tag." I didn't rub it in. What would be the point? Grandpa loved you too, Marcus. He gave you the land because he wanted you to have something permanent, something that couldn't be taken away. Unless I'm stupid enough to sell it to developers and blow the money. Marcus smiled sadly. "Which I almost did, but you didn't, because you stopped me with a worthless tractor." We both laughed at that. The tension that had existed between us since childhood was finally easing, not gone, probably never entirely gone, but manageable. We were becoming what Grandpa had always wanted, brothers who worked together instead of competing. Marcus started bringing his kids to the farm on weekends. His daughter Emma, who was 14, became fascinated with agricultural science after seeing the John Deere and hearing its story. His son Kyle helped with lighter farm work, learning responsibility. "Grandpa would love this," Marcus said one evening, watching the kids work together. 3 generations, all connected by that tractor and that land. 4 generations, I corrected. Don't forget Grandpa's father. This land was his originally. Marcus nodded slowly. "I never thought about it like that. We're part of a chain. Grandpa was trying to make sure the chain didn't break." "Exactly. And he used a worthless tractor to do it." That winter, Marcus proposed something unexpected. "What if we bought the property next to mine? Old Henderson's farm, 80 acres. He's retiring, wants to sell. We could expand the operation." "We?" I raised an eyebrow. "Thought you were the landowner and I was just the equipment guy." He grinned. "Yeah, well, maybe it's time to be actual partners. 50-50 on the new land. You put in cash from your tractor rental income." We'd started renting the John Deere to film productions and agricultural events for significant fees. "And I'll match it. We'll own it together." It was a good deal. More than that, it was a partnership based on mutual respect instead of Grandpa's coercion. I agreed. By year 3, our operation had grown significantly. The Henderson property expanded our acreage to 180 total. We'd brought in another family to the co-op, adding their resources and labor. The John Deere had become something of a local celebrity, featured in agricultural magazines, displayed at county fairs, and rented out for special events. The rental income alone covered all maintenance costs, and then some. We'd established strict rules. The tractor would only be used for agricultural education, historical displays, and carefully managed events. Never for actual heavy work that might damage it. Never in weather that could harm it. Never without proper insurance. Thomas had been right about appreciation. The last appraisal came in at $750,000. The combination of its historical significance, perfect condition, and the documented story behind it had elevated it beyond typical collector value. It was now recognized as one of the most significant pieces of American agricultural history in private hands. But we'd also learned to value what the tractor represented more than what it was worth. Schools would bring students to see it, and we'd tell them Grandpa's story, how he'd worked this land, maintained this machine, and taught his grandsons about real value. Kids who'd never been on a farm would touch the steering wheel where Grandpa's hands had rested and understand something about history, legacy, and family. Jake was in college now, studying agricultural engineering. His goal was to return to the farm after graduation, bringing modern technology to traditional farming practices. He'd already designed irrigation systems that reduced water usage by 30%. He talked about GPS-guided equipment and drone monitoring, but he understood that progress had to respect tradition. Marcus's daughter, Emma, was following a similar path, studying sustainable agriculture with a focus on soil conservation. She'd written her college entrance essay about the John Deere and what it had taught her about looking beyond surface appearances. She got into her first choice school with a full scholarship. The land Grandpa had divided between his grandsons was now unified in purpose, if not ownership. Multiple families worked it together, profits were shared fairly, and sustainable practices ensured it would remain productive for generations. Most importantly, the relationship between Marcus and me had been permanently changed. We weren't just brothers now. We were partners, friends, and co-stewards of something bigger than both of us. 10 years after Grandpa's death, we held a memorial gathering on the farm. All the family came, plus the farming families we'd partnered with, and even Thomas Crawford, who'd become a close friend. We'd restored Grandpa's old farmhouse and converted it into a community center for agricultural education. The John Deere sat in a place of honor in the barn, which we'd transformed into a small museum documenting the property's history. There were photos spanning 5 generations, farming equipment from different eras, and Grandpa's original letter to me, framed on the wall. Marcus gave a speech that day. 10 years ago, I thought I'd inherited the valuable part of Grandpa's estate. I got the land, after all. Land is worth money. My brother got a rusty old tractor. I actually laughed at him. I was an idiot. People chuckled. But Marcus continued seriously. What I didn't understand is that Grandpa didn't give us things. He gave us a test. Would we see beyond the obvious? Would we work together or against each other? Would we honor his legacy or squander it? He looked at me. Danny passed that test immediately. I failed it. But Grandpa was wise enough to structure things, so I'd eventually figure it out. That worthless tractor turned out to be worth a fortune. But more than that, it turned out to be the key to understanding what really matters. Jake and Emma unveiled a plaque we'd had made. It read, Joseph Henderson Farm, Estier 1947, where 4 generations learned that the greatest inheritance isn't measured in acres or dollars, but in wisdom, character, and family. In memory of Joseph Joe Henderson, who knew that some things are worth more than they appear. That afternoon, I took the John Deere out for a ceremonial drive around the property. Jake rode with me, like he had that first day when we'd opened the engine cover and found Grandpa's letter. Emma and Kyle rode on the trailer we pulled. Marcus walked alongside, hand on the fender. We drove past fields that were producing better than ever, past the farmhouse where Grandpa had lived and loved and planned, past the barn where he'd secretly maintained a treasure for 40 years, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. "You know," Marcus said as we drove, "I never actually apologized properly. For mocking you, for being an arrogant jerk. For not seeing what Grandpa was trying to teach us. You just apologized now," I pointed out. "Is it too late?" "No," I said honestly. "Grandpa didn't set all this up so we'd stay angry. He set it up so we'd eventually figure things out and work together." "Mission accomplished then," Marcus smiled. "You think he's watching?" "Definitely," Jake chimed in from behind us. "And he's probably laughing at how long it took you both to get it." We all laughed at that, because Jake was probably right. Grandpa had always had a sense of humor about human nature. He'd known exactly what he was doing, giving each of us what we needed, not what we wanted. As the sun set over the farm that evening, I sat on the porch of the restored farmhouse with my family gathered around. The John Deere was back in the barn, gleaming under careful lighting. Our crops were growing strong. The partnership was thriving, and the legacy Grandpa had worked so hard to preserve was secure for another generation. Some people inherit money, some inherit land. I inherited a worthless tractor that turned out to be priceless, not because of its monetary value, but because of the lessons it taught and the family it brought together. Grandpa had been right all along. Some things really are worth more than they appear. You just have to be willing to look beneath the hood.